Perhaps the most famous cryptid associated with Antarctica is the ningen. The first mentions of it began appearing on Japanese internet forums in the early 2000s. Participants presenting themselves as crew members of research vessels claimed that in the icy waters of the southern latitudes they had observed enormous white creatures resembling a human. According to their accounts, the ningen could reach 20, sometimes even 30 meters in length. The creature supposedly had arms, legs, and a head similar in shape to that of a human, but without distinct facial features. Some descriptions compared it to a whale with limbs, while others likened it to a giant aquatic yeti. The most frightening detail was said to be its skin. According to eyewitnesses, it was perfectly smooth, without fur, scales, or folds. A flat, white surface that allowed the creature to blend seamlessly among icebergs and drifting ice. Despite the popularity of this legend, no convincing evidence of the ningen's existence has ever surfaced. Online, you can find only amateur illustrations and a few blurry photographs, none of which has been confirmed as authentic. Because of this, the scientific community treats such stories with strong skepticism. Most researchers consider the ningen to be a piece of modern mythology, or an internet hoax that originated online and later found its way into paranormal publications. No official expedition has ever recorded such a creature, and academic science does not acknowledge its existence. Supporters of rational explanations suggest that eyewitnesses may have mistaken known marine animals for the ningen. A beluga whale, a large shark, a giant ray, or even a squid can appear frightening and unusual under poor visibility conditions. There is also a theory that the mysterious creature might have been nothing more than an iceberg or an optical illusion in the nighttime ocean. Under the harsh conditions of Antarctica, human vision is easily deceived. In 1967, the newspaper Vechernaya Moskva published a brief report that quickly caught readers' attention. It stated that several naval aviation pilots, as well as the crew of the whaling ship Sovetskaya Rossiya, had observed two large creatures resembling sea serpents in southern waters on their way to Antarctica. According to eyewitnesses, these beings had elongated, dark-colored bodies and moved with a wave-like motion beneath the water's surface. It was assumed that each creature could have been over 15 meters long. The sailors emphasized that over the years of service, they had seen countless marine animals and were certain that these were neither whales, nor seals, nor large squid. Pilots observing the objects from the air also described long, curved silhouettes that changed direction as if bending with their entire bodies. The report was published at the height of the Cold War, when any unusual news involving the sea or the military caused heightened public interest, something that only amplified curiosity about the incident. Some readers suggested that the witnesses may have seen giant squid mistaken for snake-like creatures, especially under poor visibility. Others proposed theories about large eels or unknown elongated fish carried into southern waters by unusual currents. However, the unique aspect of this case was that the descriptions matched across several witnesses located in different positions, both on deck and in the air. It is known that after the publication, Soviet maritime authorities even recommended paying special attention to any anomalous objects sighted in those regions. But what exactly was seen in those waters remains a mystery.
Upside-down anemones.
In 2010, scientists working within the Andril project were drilling through the Ross ice shelf to study conditions beneath the ice. In one of the boreholes, they lowered an underwater robot equipped with cameras. Researchers did not expect to find any life there, but when they pointed the cameras upward, they were stunned. The entire underside of the ice shelf was covered with thousands of tiny white anemones hanging downward with their tentacles, like flowers growing from a ceiling. This organism turned out to be a species new to science, later named Edwardsiella andrilli in honor of the program through which it was discovered. The anemone is very small, only a few centimeters long with 20 to 24 tentacles. It lives embedded directly inside the sea ice. The animal's body is lodged in a small icy cavity, with only the ring of tentacles protruding outward to catch microscopic organisms drifting by. To this day, it is the only known species of sea anemone adapted to living in an icy ceiling, or steep, without contact with the seafloor, in complete darkness, and at temperatures around -2 degrees Celsius. How Edwardsiella andrilla withstands the extreme cold and stays anchored inside solid ice remains a mystery. No obvious anatomical structures have been found that could function as a biological antifreeze. Its reproductive mechanism also remains poorly understood. One hypothesis is that the eggs, rich in lipids and low in density, rise and become trapped beneath the lower surface of the ice, where larvae later develop and attach. However, there is still no direct evidence supporting this. The colony beneath the Ross Ice Shelf has become a rare example of a stable community existing in complete isolation from sunlight and conventional food sources. Along with small crustaceans and fish observed in the same sub-ice cavities, they have demonstrated that even the most inaccessible regions of Antarctica are capable of supporting their own previously unknown ecosystems.
The giant scale worm.
In the cold waters of Antarctica lives one of the region's most unusual and visually disturbing creatures. It is a large polycate worm, reaching up to about 20 centimeters in length, an impressive size for a marine annelid. Its body is covered with shiny oval plates resembling metallic scales. These structures form a kind of protective armor and reflect light in a way that gives the creature an artificial, almost mechanical sheen. When the worm remains still, it looks little different from other bottom-dwelling organisms, and usually hides in sediment or beneath stones. However, what truly unsettles observers is its head apparatus. The animal possesses an extendable proboscis, a specialized hunting mechanism. In its retracted state, it stays fully hidden inside the body, making the worm appear relatively harmless. But during an attack or when capturing prey, the proboscis suddenly turns outward, revealing dark, curved jaws that resemble claws. In this form, the creature indeed looks like something extraterrestrial, which is why it became so popular online. Photos of the worm displaying its open mouth parts quickly spread across the internet and went viral. This polycate lives on the seafloor, where it hunts mostly small invertebrates. Despite its intimidating appearance, it poses no danger to humans. Nevertheless, its unusual anatomy and frightening look have made it one of the most famous Antarctic horrors among real, scientifically described animals.
Giant sea spiders of the genus Colossendeus.
In the deep waters of Antarctica dwell creatures whose appearance evokes strong discomfort in many people, the giant sea spiders of the genus Colossendeus. Despite their name, they are not true spiders. These animals belong to a separate group of marine arthropods known as pycnogonids, or sea spiders. Their main feature is their extremely disproportionate body structure. The body itself is very small, sometimes only a few centimeters long, while the legs can be truly enormous. In Antarctic waters, specimens have been found with a leg span exceeding 70 centimeters from the tip of one limb to the other. In the dim, deep water, such long, thin legs resemble wire frames. Sea spiders move slowly, stepping gracefully across the seafloor, and this unhurried motion gives them an especially ghostly appearance. Their coloration is usually pale, whitish, or slightly pinkish, which makes them look even stranger against the dark seabed. Thanks to the high oxygen content in the cold Antarctic waters, these animals can reach sizes impossible for their relatives in warm seas, a phenomenon known as polar gigantism. Many Antarctic invertebrates exhibit larger body sizes due to slow metabolism and favorable conditions for respiration. Colossendeus species also possess an additional unusual trait. Unlike most arthropods, they obtain oxygen not only through specialized organs, but also directly through the surface of their long limbs. This is possible due to their extremely thin cuticle. Such an adaptation evolved because the sea spider's body is too small to accommodate a full respiratory system. For humans, these creatures are completely harmless. They are not aggressive, not venomous, and cannot cause any harm. However, their appearance, thin, long-legged, semi-translucent bodies and slow, almost eerie movements, can easily frighten an unprepared observer.
Organism 46b.
According to one of the darkest Antarctic legends, a massive creature resembling a giant octopus supposedly lived beneath the Soviet station Vostok. Its length was said to reach around 10 meters, and the body displayed extraordinary plasticity. The creature could change its shape and showed incredible resilience. Even severed parts of its body continued to move and function as if they were still part of a single organism. The first mentions appeared in 1974. It was claimed that the creature inhabited a large subglacial reservoir that would later become known as Lake Vostok, named after the station above it. After decades of drilling and extracting ice cores, a research team finally reached the water on February 5, 2012. It was this moment that became associated with the most frightening accounts. Eyewitnesses allegedly stated that within the first hours of contact, it became clear the creature was not only enormous, but also somehow affected equipment and people. It was also said to release a paralyzing substance into the water, after which it attacked its prey. Those exposed to this toxin supposedly fell into a strange state of euphoria and detachment, completely losing the will to resist and even unconsciously hastening their own demise, as if under a hypnotic influence. Later, the creature was attributed an even more incredible ability, taking on a human form to approach its victims unnoticed. Eventually, according to the story, Organism 46b was captured and studied, including with regard to potential military applications. It all sounds eerie and intriguing, but it must be clarified. This entire story is fictional and belongs to the creepypasta universe, SCP. There is, of course, no real evidence for the existence of Organism 46b.
Giant amphipods.
Usual creatures. Giant amphipods. Under normal conditions, these crustaceans look like tiny transparent shrimp, only a few millimeters or centimeters in length. However, in the cold and deep waters of the southern latitudes, some representatives of this group reach sizes of up to 10 centimeters, which seems surprisingly large for such organisms. Their appearance is quite peculiar. A translucent body, long antennae, and segment structure allow them to move swiftly and deftly across the seafloor. Their increased size makes them resemble either the result of a strange mutation or members of a more ancient, archaic form of life. To an unprepared observer, such a specimen might easily look like an enlarged, almost monstrous version of an ordinary marine crustacean. These unusual proportions are yet another manifestation of polar gigantism, characteristic of the Antarctic depths, where cold water and high oxygen levels allow invertebrates to grow much larger than their relatives in warmer seas.
La Cosa.
In 2020, on Seymour Island near the coast of Antarctica, a discovery was made that immediately drew the attention of paleontologists worldwide. Scientists uncovered a fossilized object resembling a giant eggshell, over 28 centimeters long. Because of its strange appearance, crumpled like a deflated leather pouch, the find received the unofficial nickname La Cosa. The name both emphasized its mysterious nature and referenced the cult horror film set in Antarctica. At first, researchers were unable to determine what animal such an egg could belong to. Its shell was soft, thin, and wrinkled, which sharply distinguished it from the hard shells of dinosaur eggs. After detailed analysis, it turned out that the structure most closely resembles the leathery eggs of modern reptiles. Considering the age of the surrounding rock, about 66 million years, and the marine environment in which the fossil was found, scientists suggested that the egg might have belonged to a large marine reptile. Mosasaurs, dominant predators of the late Cretaceous oceans, were named among the likely candidates. Discoveries of this kind are extremely rare, as soft shells almost never fossilize. This is why La Cosa became a genuine scientific sensation. In terms of size, it is one of the largest soft-shelled eggs known to science, significantly expanding our understanding of the size and biology of ancient marine reptiles.
The Antarctic Godzilla.
In 1958, the crew of the Japanese whaling ship Soya, operating in the Lutzow-Holm Bay off the coast of Antarctica, reported an extremely unusual sighting. The sailors claimed that among the ice floes they saw a large animal that surfaced for only a brief moment. According to them, the creature had a massive head about a meter across, covered in a shaggy or fur-like texture. Distinct pointed ears stood out on its head, and its eyes appeared large and dark. But what drew the crew's attention most was the creature's back. Running along it was a row of rigid, jagged projections resembling a crest or uneven plates. Something between a mythical sea monster and a fantastical reptile. The sighting lasted only a few seconds before the creature disappeared beneath the water again. This brief moment was not enough to take photographs or make measurements, but the sailors were deeply impressed by what they had seen. The ship's captain, referencing the popularity of the film franchise in post-war Japan, jokingly called the unknown creature the Antarctic Godzilla. The nickname stuck and was later reused in retellings of the incident. Researchers have since attempted to find rational explanations, ranging from a large seal or leopard seal with damaged skin to a simple perceptual error. Nevertheless, the crew's account is considered fairly consistent and detailed, which has allowed the story to remain part of Antarctic folklore to this day.
The DC-10 crash.
On November 28, 1979, an Air New Zealand sightseeing flight departed for an aerial tour over the coast of Antarctica. The McDonnell Douglas DC-10 was supposed to pass over McMurdo Sound so that passengers could view the icy expanses and the research station on Ross Island. Conditions remained favorable until the aircraft entered cloud cover, after which the crew began descending below the recommended altitude. The crew was experienced, but none of the pilots had previously flown in Antarctic latitudes. It was later discovered that incorrect route coordinates had been programmed into the navigation system. As a result, the aircraft did not follow the safe corridor, but shifted eastward, heading directly toward Mount Erebus. This deviation went unnoticed for a long time and became the decisive factor in the catastrophe. At an altitude of roughly 470 meters, the ground proximity warning system activated. The captain immediately applied maximum thrust and attempted to climb, but there was no time left for maneuvering. At 12:49 local time, the DC-10 struck the slope of the volcano. All 257 people on board were killed. This incident became the first major aviation disaster in the history of Antarctica. The search operation began that same evening. The wreckage was found on the slopes of Erebus, where rescuers had to work in extremely harsh weather conditions. Later, a video recorded by one of the passengers shortly before the tragedy became public. The footage shows a calm cabin, tourists looking out the windows, and the endless icy desert beneath the wing. These recordings were seen by many families who had hoped until the end that their loved ones were not on board. The investigation lasted several years. The first official conclusions placed responsibility on the crew. However, subsequent analysis showed that the key factor was the navigation error entered into the system before takeoff. It was this mistake that led the aircraft into a deadly collision course with the mountain.
The case of Rodney Marks.
On May 11, 2000, at the Amundsen Scott South Pole Station, 32-year-old astrophysicist Rodney Marks was returning from work between a remote observatory and the main base, when he suddenly felt a sharp deterioration in his condition. He complained of shortness of breath, severe weakness, and vision problems. Believing the episode to be temporary, Marks tried to rest, but the symptoms continued to intensify. Over the next day and a half, he visited the station's only doctor, Robert Thompson, 3 times. Each visit was marked by increasingly alarming symptoms: severe abdominal pain, painful sensitivity of the eyes to light, mounting anxiety, and agitation. On the morning of May 12th, Marks began vomiting blood. During the final examination, Thompson administered an antipsychotic medication to reduce his anxiety. Almost immediately after the injection, Marks went into cardiac arrest. Resuscitation efforts lasted about 45 minutes, but he could not be saved. At the time, 49 people were stationed at the base, but evacuating the body or calling for outside medical assistance was impossible. The South Pole was in the middle of polar night. Aircraft landings were out of the question, and extreme temperatures made any logistics unfeasible. Marks's body was preserved by the cold and remained at the station for about 6 months until it could be transported to New Zealand for autopsy. The autopsy results were unexpected. The cause of death was determined to be acute methanol poisoning. About 150 milliliters of methanol were found in Marks's system, a dose more than sufficient to cause irreversible damage and death. The possibility of natural causes was completely ruled out. The investigation established that methanol at the station was stored separately, clearly labeled, and not kept near alcoholic beverages. A bar operated at the base, so there was no need for homemade alcohol production. Nothing in Marks's personal belongings suggested attempts at fermentation or chemical experimentation. The hypothesis of suicide was considered unlikely. Marks showed no signs of depression, had plans for the future, was engaged, and actively participated in the station's work. People who communicated with him shortly before the incident did not notice any strange or self-destructive behavior. A mass poisoning was also excluded, as no one else on the station became ill. Accidental ingestion of methanol seemed highly improbable. It is difficult to imagine someone unintentionally drinking nearly a full glass of pure methanol given strict labeling procedures. Questions were also raised about the medical treatment provided. Thompson was the sole physician at the station and monitored Marks alone, consulting outside specialists only via communication channels. Marks's arm bore traces of injections, but toxicological tests revealed only the medications Thompson was authorized to administer for anxiety relief. No foreign substances were detected. After 2006, Thompson disappeared from the public eye, fueling rumors but providing no new facts. The investigation faced significant challenges. The station is under international administration, and jurisdiction between the US and New Zealand proved muddled. New Zealand police managed to interview only 13 of the 49 people who wintered at the station, and the active phase of the investigation began months later, when most potential evidence was already lost. The continent's isolation, the lack of independent witnesses, and the inability to document the scene promptly made the investigation incomplete. In the end, 3 possibilities remained: an accident involving an unknown source of methanol exposure, unintentional contact with methanol in a domestic or laboratory setting, or deliberate poisoning. The latter considered only as a hypothesis, with no supporting evidence. Rodney Marks was known to be emotional, loud, and sometimes prone to risky behavior, and some speculated about interpersonal conflicts, but none of these assumptions were ever linked to his death in any documented way. The death of Rodney Marks remains unsolved. There is no convincing evidence of accident, suicide, or homicide. It stands as one of the rare cases in which a person dies in complete isolation among a small group of people, and where reconstructing the exact chain of events proves impossible.
Sail Rock.
Users of Google Maps, while exploring the area near Deception Island in the South Shetland Islands, noticed a strange object on one of the satellite images. To many, it appeared to be a massive living creature. If you enter the corresponding coordinates and switch to satellite view, you can indeed see an elongated shape in the dark water, along with a characteristic splash that creates the illusion of a head and part of a large body. Online, the discovery was quickly nicknamed the Kraken. Users speculated that the visible portion of the object was about 30 meters long, and if one took into account the part supposedly hidden underwater, the total length of the creature could reach 100 to 120 meters. Other enthusiasts saw in the silhouette a plesiosaur, an extinct marine reptile, which only fueled the excitement and inspired new theories. The saved images did look impressive. It seemed as though something enormous and alive was descending into the water. For people accustomed to searching for anomalies on satellite maps, the discovery appeared convincing. The myth grew even stronger because even the largest squids known to science do not reach such sizes, making the object appear inconsistent with any real marine animal. However, a more detailed analysis quickly clarified the situation. Researcher Andrew David Thaler compared the satellite image with topographic and navigational charts and discovered that the so-called Kraken was not a living creature at all. In reality, it was a well-known geological formation, a rock called Sail Rock. This solitary stone outcrop rises from the water near Deception Island and has long been marked on nautical charts. From certain angles, its shape can indeed resemble an elongated silhouette, while waves crashing against it create the illusion of movement and splashing. On low-resolution satellite images, this combination can easily mislead observers and look like the head of a giant creature hiding beneath the ocean surface.
That's all for today. Thank you very much for watching the video to the end. Be sure to leave your ideas for future episodes in the comments. I'll try to bring the most interesting ones to life. This is the first video on my channel, and I would really appreciate your support. Likes and comments truly help with promotion, especially in the beginning. Thank you again for watching. See you in the next video.